you know, I used to be a teacher, and I taught kids who either learned differently or had difficulties learning. And one of the things that I tried to remember with the kids that I taught, although I actually believe this is true for kids of all ages, 0 to 100, is that everyone learns differently. Good teachers know that one way fits all approach doesn't actually fit all. So I tell you this as a sort of reason why I preach in different manners. You know, one week I'll do the typical sermon, which I do a lot, but then another week I'll do a poem or a book or a video or we'll dance. Anyway, I'm mostly telling a story today. A story that seems to speak for itself. And I thought about this a lot this week, about how much to explain the actions of Jesus and how much to explain Jesus' thoughts. About how Jesus often tells us stories and then allows it to live in our hearts. As if his story, in and of itself, somehow cleanses and refreshes us. And I thought about the fact that long ago God promised to write his story on our hearts. How the story is already in us. And God's Spirit teaches us to hear it today through words and stories, through experiences and moments. So in some ways, I'm trusting the story to speak for itself today, to speak for God, which I think means that you'll each hear something differently than what your neighbor might hear. I hope that what you hear today is what God would need you to hear. So on to our story of Lost and Found. It was late afternoon, and the ocean rolled hard. White sprays of foam washing over unseen shells and rocks lost beneath the waves. The summer sun had beaten down all day, draining energy from all the adults, while somehow infusing the children with energy. Now, though, a few clouds meandered across the sky, looking like soft pink puffs of cotton candy in the late afternoon sky. Children dashed to and from the waters, carrying buckets of salt water to fill the moats which surrounded their sand castles. Occasionally, they sought refuge under large striped umbrellas, and they would steal a kiss or have a snack. And parents watched. Mostly they didn't watch the sandcastle builders, though. Mostly they watched the swimmers and the boogie boarders. The waves were rough, and the current was unpredictable. This scene dotted the shore, up and down the beach, group after group, watching, playing, building, talking, and swimming. But there's one child. He's small. Maybe 4 years old. And he's been building a sandcastle, and he's gone to get some water and shells and sticks. Every good kingdom needs fortification and decoration, and every good sandcastle builder knows this. And this boy is not only a good sandcastle builder, but he's a great sandcastle builder, especially for somebody of the age of 4. He always spends his beach time in the sand, hardly ever going into the water, concentrating and developing. Every once in a while, he'd look over at his mom and flash her his goofy smile. She sat nearby in one of those low-to-the-ground beach chairs. She was digging in the sand, too, but it was more absent-mindedly. But now, the boy wasn't building, and he wasn't playing in the sand, and his mom most certainly wasn't sitting nearby. Now he's running, zigzagging back and forth as only children do. His indigo blue swimming suit makes it hard for him to run because the legs of the suit reach past his knees, hindering his movement, and he needs to go faster. Where is his mom? He still carries his bucket, yellow with a blue handle. If there was ever anything in the bucket, it's been lost, dropped along the way. Somehow, nobody knows quite how. Not the small boy, nor the mother, nor anyone in his family. But he is undeniably lost. He knows it. Lost. And his mom now knows it. She's been watching the ocean, making sure she can find the other tiny heads bobbing along in the water. And she's been digging in the sand and talking. And she's been happy. Nothing seemed out of place. Until that moment, when suddenly she knew the boy wasn't where he had been. And he wasn't under the umbrella. And he wasn't near the water. Surely he was around. She gets up, looking in front and behind her, and begins to walk up the beach with a purpose. She's trying not to look frantic. It's not time to panic yet. She's just trying to find one lost little boy who surely isn't really lost. She just can't find him. He's here, right? But he isn't. Soon it's very, very clear that he isn't here, or there, or anywhere. She's running now down the beach, hoping she's headed in the right direction, but how does she know which way to go? He's the lost one, but now she feels lost too. She's not going to run too quickly though, because she might miss him. Somewhere else on the beach, the boy suddenly runs, this time straight. He runs because he sees his mom. That's her. There she is in the brown swimsuit. Mommy, Mommy! And the woman he calls to turns around. And he's confused. This isn't his mom. She does have a brown swimsuit on, just like his mom. And she is a mom. But it isn't his mommy. And he's scared. And now he starts to cry. He's been holding back tears this whole time. He doesn't cry hard. The tears just fall from his big brown eyes onto the sand in front of him and down his flushed cheeks, dripping onto his round belly. But the woman in the brown swimsuit walks over to him and asks him if he's lost. And he says he is. And he tells her that his mommy wears a brown swimsuit too. That's all he knows. His mommy wears a brown swimsuit too. It's not very much to go on. She tells him he's okay now, that she has found him, and they will find his mommy. Found. But the little boy doesn't feel found. He knows he is, he guesses. But, well, the woman is asking a lot of questions, and he doesn't know the answer to any of them. He's already told her a brown swimsuit. That's all he knows. He can't do the finding. Thankfully, it doesn't seem to matter that he doesn't know the answers. She doesn't seem to really need the answers. She grabs his little hand and thinks, she must know what to do, because this is what mommies do. Mommies hold hands. She turns him around and they walk down the beach slowly. And she carries a yellow bucket for him. And they walk back from the way he came. He doesn't know how long they walk, but he knows he's tired. He wonders if he will find his mom. And everything begins to look the same in his heavy eyes, the people on the chairs, the sand and the water. He is looking, but he's not seeing clearly anymore. And his mom, she's still looking too. How long has it actually been? She doesn't know, but it seems like a long time. To her, it seems like a lifetime. And then suddenly, without any warning or even realization, a woman in a brown swimsuit walks up to her with the boy, with her son. And she scoops him up and he wraps his arms around her neck and starts jabbering away. and she arches her back just to keep her balance so she can hug him tighter. And the boy tells his mommy about the brown bathing suit, about how that mommy had a brown bathing suit just like she did. And she realizes the woman in the brown bathing suit is already down the beach. She can see her walking back from the way they came. And she can't recall ever saying thank you, which seems so insufficient. She hardly noticed her, the woman who saved his life, the woman who saved her life. She only saw him. And he's still talking. And she's crying, but he doesn't know she's crying. Her nose is buried into the small of his neck, taking in the smell of sunscreen and heat and salt, all mingled together. Returned. Now they are both truly found. And there will be more joy in heaven over one. Joy in heaven and joy on earth. When one, just one small child, is returned into the arms of his mother. The angels will sing and celebration will be grand. And she carries him back to their beach spot, and he doesn't walk. He's curled tightly around her, and she will not let him go. And it's curious to her. She gets back and nobody knows she's been gone. All this lostness and foundness going on right before our eyes, and sometimes we don't even realize it. Afterwards, she listens to his small voice that drops his R's, explain to the others how the lady in the brown bathing suit found him. And she doesn't know what she would have done without the lady in the brown bathing suit. And the little boy still talks about that day, about the day he got lost on the beach. His mom still thinks about that day too. She thinks about how her son wandered off, not to get lost, but because he had no fear of getting lost. She thinks about how she could have watched closer so he wouldn't have that scar on his heart. She thinks about how that changed him and how it changed her. She thinks about how when her son was lost, it wasn't only him that was lost. She thinks about how when she scooped him up in her arms, he wasn't the only one found. And she knows there's more to being lost and found than a simple game of hide and seek. One is only found once one is returned. Returned into the arms of the one who loves you as much as possible. Found. Held tightly in arms that will not let you go. Found. And weightless and free, lifted up from the burdens that have held you. Found. And the mother remembers all of this as she sits to write a sermon one day on being lost and found. And she thinks about how flat it seems, how easy it seems to say lost and found. And she thinks about that question. Which of you, having lost something, wouldn't go after it and find it? And the woman knows she'd go after it. But she also knows she might not be able to find what she's looking for. And it's then that she realizes that maybe the lady in the brown bathing suit was Jesus. Silently, that woman had walked away from them. But only once she knew that they had both truly been found, returned to one another. Jesus returns things as they should be and wanders off to find the next coin or sheep or boy. This is a story of intimacy and isolation, of fault and forgiveness, of weariness and joy, of wandering and coming home. It is a story of how we lose ourselves quite by happenstance, and how we are found by Christ quite by persistence.